It's so funny. I was just talking to you about your story and like how I feel bad today for being hoarse, but you had to literally start your life over.
I did. Look, life is a journey, right? So the one thing you can expect with life is the unexpected. And when you're young, you have this path that you think you're going down, and we've all been there, right? I'm gonna be a doctor when I'm younger. I'm gonna be a nurse. I'm gonna own my own business. And for me, hey, look, I had this dream of being an NBA basketball player. And once I was able to achieve that dream, which was crazy, by the way, that it actually happened, I kind of got caught into the glitz and the glamour and the fame that came along with the responsibility. And I couldn't handle it. It was overwhelming to me. And my life was able to change very quickly because of some reckless decisions that we all make at the age of 21 that sometimes a lot of us can reflect back on and look at and say, wow, that could have worked out a lot differently. Well, in my case, it worked out a lot differently.
So let's talk a little bit about you developing that dream. Like you're a boy from
hmm
New Jersey, you had working class parents that worked really hard. So how did you even get into basketball?
I was a nerd, still am to this day, which actually I like it. Back when you're in high school, you were a nerd, you weren't
Right.
cool. Now when you get older, I was like, oh, he's so smart. So it was great. When I was in grammar school, high school, I played every sport. Crystal, I was basketball, soccer. My dad was heavily into tennis. He loved Ivan Lendl. I was captain of my chess team. I was in the Asian club. Yeah, I'm not even Asian. All these things happened, right? I was all over the map, and it finally got to this time my sophomore year where my dad said, okay, look, you're playing 8 million sports. Your mom and I are tired of running after you, taking you to all these daggone practices. It's time to pick one. And I just randomly chose basketball. And it was just something that I loved. And I was always told that I wasn't good enough in basketball. And it's funny because my entire life, whatever I've decided to do, people continue to say that. And I'm like, all right, that just fuels the motivation to continue to work harder.
So you get picked number 2 overall draft pick 2002 with
hmm
Yao Ming. It's funny, I was in Houston at the time when he came to the team, and so you were like his competition, like.
Yeah, well, first off, out of all the years for God to descend a 7'6" Chinese man upon me, it had to be that year. Like seriously, come on, you can't beat that. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so you say it's funny in your book you talk about how you're standing in your beautiful condo and you're overlooking Lake Michigan and all these blessings are there for
hmm
you. And then in a minute your life changes from a decision. Tell me about that day when you decided to go out on the motorcycle.
Well, the day was actually kicking off pretty well. I had a long night before, at the age of 21, partying in Durham, North Carolina, like any other 21-year-old would do, and got on a flight, came back to my apartment, took a nap, and then I had a great workout at the Chicago Bulls practice facility. And it was actually the first time that my legs, that year, I was so tired. We played 41 games in college the year before. All of a sudden, you play 82 games, and you don't have a night off. I mean, imagine if you were playing in the NBA today. Monday night against Stephen Curry, Tuesday night against Damian Lillard, Wednesday off, Thursday against Kyrie Irving. The names go on and on and on. Back then, it was Jason Kidd, Allen Iverson, Gary Payton, all those names. So I was tired. I had no legs. But that day, I felt rejuvenated. All of a sudden, there was this new, inspired, refreshed outlook I had towards the NBA. I didn't need to be friends with everybody on my team. I needed to continue to stay in the gym and work my tail off and get better. So it was a culmination for me that day because I worked out in practice, did great against Jamal Crawford. Still a little bit hungover, always being honest. And then, came back to my apartment, took another nap, woke up, and the sun was out that day. And it was one of those days that in Chicago, look, the sun is rarely out in that city. And the winter was brutal. I mean, it'd be a -5 outside. I would only go from my apartment to my car to the gym. That's it. So that day, I'm like, hey, you know what? I moved the Tahoe keys to the side. I moved the Corvette keys to the side. I'm like, I'm going to take the motorcycle out today. And I shouldn't have had my bike. But a lot of people were doing things that you shouldn't be doing at that time. And they still are in the NBA to this day. And went down to have a meeting with my agent and my marketing guy, talk about a website, got there totally fine. And then on my way out, my agent looked at me and was like, what are you doing, man? Why are you riding that bike? You shouldn't be doing that. And I said, Kevin, I shouldn't be doing a lot of things, man.
Right, I'm 21.
Yeah, exactly. You always find a way of justifying
Right.
things when you're 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I still do at 34. And got on my bike. And as I was going away, look, justification goes a long way. Didn't have a helmet on because there was no helmet law in Chicago. Didn't have any protective gear because I thought, why not? I'm only a couple miles away from my home downtown Chicago. And just arrogance and my ego was out of control at that given time. Apparently being on a billboard wasn't enough for me. And as I was pulling away, I just had a new muffler on the bike. I revved the engine once. I revved it twice. The second time was louder than the first. And in the middle of my third rev, I just heard the bike go click, click. And out of nowhere, the bike popped up and it was doing a wheelie on me. And I wish that in that given moment, I would have kind of evoked that old phrase, let go, let God. But, at the age of 21, I wanted to control my life, every aspect around it. And I wanted to control the safety of my bike. So when the bike popped up, I was going around 60 miles per hour, and I grabbed on the handlebars to try to, wrestle it down to the ground. And, when I was pulled back, I guess my hands on the throttle pulled it back even more. The bottom wheel spun out. And next thing you know, I'm going towards a utility pole going 70 miles per hour, and I couldn't change direction quick enough to get out of the way, and, totally clipped off the whole left side of my body.
Wow. And so you were in the hospital for almost 3 months.
Yeah, a long 3 months. 3 months full of, multiple pins in my left leg inserted into my bone, pins inserted into my pelvis. Very high all the time on morphine, Dilaudid, all the habituates they put you on. And finally got released from the hospital. 3 months. I was in Chicago Masonic for a month and a half. Then I went down to Duke for another month and a half. I separated my pubic symphysis, which is what happens to a woman when they have a child. I separated my 13 inches. So I had severe nerve damage in that department, which truly humbled me for a year and a half afterwards, and completely dislocated my knee, tore every ligament in my knee, and tore my peroneal nerve, which allows you to pull your foot up and down. It's your brain sends a signal to your foot through your nerve in that particular nerve to pull your foot up and down. So I had a bunch of serious injuries. I had over 150 staples in my left leg, 4 slits on the inside of my left leg, and over 10 plus surgeries.
And so I want to just talk about it. Something that was just was really gripping to me, and it put it in perspective, was when you talked about just walking down the street and how you literally couldn't lift your left foot off the ground.
Yeah, and it's one of those things as an athlete, you're used to people looking at you in a state of awe, recognizing what you were able to accomplish. And there's a fulfillment that comes along with that, because you've worked your tail off in order to achieve this goal. And how that look changed over the years, from a look of, excitement to a look of sorrow and pity. And I think for me internally, look, obviously having 10 plus surgeries, I went through a lot physically, but none of that compared to the torture that I had to live through mentally, because, I did this to myself. I couldn't blame it on anybody else. I couldn't say, hey, I was hit by this drunk driver, or, this person messed up my bike. It was me and my ego that got out of control. And that's something that I had to live with. I still live with to this day, but it took me a long time to get over.
Mm-hmm. And when you were in that process of recovering, your first attempt at suicide was in the hospital.
Actually, it was at home in North Carolina, but it was okay. It pretty much was a hospital, because I couldn't get up out of my bed. I was still bedridden for another, 2.5, 3 months. And I was able to, it was one of those things that, look, you go from entertaining people and, achieving this dream that you've been waiting 21 years of your life to get. And then, you have to live with your own mental agony of being stuck in a bed, right? So every time my parents would leave, if they left my room for all but 5 minutes, it felt like a year of torture to me mentally, because I couldn't take my mind off of what I did to myself. And it just felt like it was, God put a pair of scissors next to my bed in that given moment. And, they were always changing my bandages on and off. And, my mom had left me for a little bit. And look, I played basketball. I weighed, around 198 pounds. At this given moment, 3.5 months past my accident, I weighed 155 pounds. So I look emaciated. I'm a shell of myself. And I just, I took these scissors, and it was a dull pair of scissors, and I really tried to go over my wrist as many times as possible. Actually, over this tattoo on my left wrist that says "Believe," because I just really didn't believe in anything anymore. And I was just too weak, and I was too high, actually, on Oxycontin to even accomplish the goal. And actually really happy that I didn't accomplish it, because I tried again later on in life and failed twice. It's the best failure you can ask for, I guess, right?
Definitely. So, your story, I could probably talk to you all day just about your story, but you got to a point where you were somehow on a basketball court with this Pastor Lentz. Right?
Pastor Carl Lentz.
Yes. And you're playing ball, and he kind of steps in, and he really intervenes in your life, not just in the game and this confrontation or whatever.
Yeah, I'm still not this big church guy, you know what I mean? I'll try to read passages from the Bible. He'll still kind of, what are you reading? What are you into? And send me things, and I like that. I'm still finding myself in that identity. But it was really funny how we met. So there was a guy named John Termini while I was lost to living in New York City, partying a lot, that I just randomly ran into all the time at these clubs in New York City. And he was into real estate. And I was like, you know what, fine, let me sit down with John and talk to him about real estate. So we have this great conversation, 7 o'clock in the morning on Friday. And at the end of the conversation, he's like, hey, Jay, have you found God? I'm like, oh, no, like, don't do this to me right now. I'm not really into this. And he's like, well, look, I got this pastor. He played basketball at NC State. I would love for you to meet him. Maybe you can come play basketball with us tomorrow. I'm like, sure, bring the pastor to play basketball. If he wants to get hit, knocked around, we'll do that to the pastor. Why not? There's no God in that basketball court. Just having fun with it. And, John walks in. You can always tell the people who don't play basketball because they match, right? He wore like the matching blue shirt with the blue shorts. Are you pointing at yourself right now? That's bad. And he looked more like the pastor. And this guy behind him, came in with this long draping sweater, these shorts, these Nikes. He had all these tattoos. I'm like, oh, my God, John looks like the pastor. The guy behind him looks like the soul that needs to be saved. And, he walks up to me. He's like, hey, Jay, you ready to hoop? I'm like, you're damn right I'm ready to hoop. Oh, like, I just cursed at you. I'm so sorry. And we're playing basketball, and I go up to shoot, and this guy kind of flicks me in an area he shouldn't be flicking me in. And I say, hey, look, you do that again, we're going to end up fighting. And the next time down the court, I go to shoot. He does it again. I almost take the ball ready to throw it at his face. And this pastor jumps in front of me, and he starts cursing the guy out to a certain degree. And I'm like, oh, this pastor has tattoos, and he can hoop, and he's cursing somebody out. I think I need to go to church. I don't know what's happening right now. And sorry for the story being long-winded, but I go to church the next day, and he starts reciting Bev Div DeVoe lyrics, and he's like, that girl is poison. He's like, how many things in our life do we have that are poison? He's like, I'm tired of people circling around the same mountain, falling in the same traps. And I just felt like he was talking to me at that time. I was still addicted to Oxycontin. I was lost. I had gained so much weight. I was weighing around 220 pounds. And I just didn't want to be immersed in the world. And it was one of those moments that was a defining moment for me because it's time to wake up, Jason. Like, you've been falling in the same traps for the past 8 years of your life. And it's time to stop being a victim and actually start, being inspired and living your life in a different way.
So with you going through this whole process and learning how to walk again, and you said something in an interview that you said, us just being ambitious people, I'm sure that you're just as probably way more ambitious than I am.
We're all in the same boat.
But, a lot of times we forget to focus on the right now. Mm-hmm. And you say that that's something that you didn't do when you were going through that rehabilitative process.
Yeah, because, I was chasing this ghost from my past. And my mentality was strictly set on, you threw away this opportunity. We had to make it up. And we had to find a way to get back to where I wanted to be financially, also socially, what I wanted to be accomplished. And I wanted to be accomplished. I wanted to be recognized for being great at something. And I missed that. So, you spend all these years trying to climb and, what's next? What's next? How can I elevate here? How can I do this here? How can I be, do I need to invest in there? How do I get all this back? That for this long period of my life, I never paid attention to what was right in front of me, and it wasn't until I got to that point almost at the age of 30 where I was like, what the heck am I doing? I've accomplished so much in this 10-year span of being heard and trying to climb this daggone mountain that I haven't taken time to tell the people who have been around me to help me even get there. I love you and thank you for helping me pick myself back up. It's almost in a way I spent that past 9 years playing basketball like Russell Westbrook. Like, he always plays angry, right? Like, he always wants to break the rim. And I feel like that's how I was living my life. I was angry, not at anybody but myself. And, you can't appreciate until there's a level of appreciation for the people that help you get there. And that's what I realized.
That's interesting. I covered some stuff for NBA All-Star last year, and I got to talk to Nerlens Knowles and all these wonderful rising stars. And, you see the light in them, but, you also see that I didn't see the same level of passion that a lot of the guys that came up when I was really watching basketball, your Iversons and all that kind of stuff. So when you think about the things you took for granted in that time, right, what do you think was the greatest thing that you missed out on?
The one thing that I really wish and look, I'm making an impact in different ways, but I don't know if I would have been able to recognize it because I was going down a different path too at that time. I just, I wanted to be able to create a legacy for my family and my family's family and build that kind of wealth, right? Obviously, you miss out on an opportunity to do that, especially with the inflation of the CBA right now. These guys are getting paid crazy, absurd amounts of money. I'm looking at guys who are averaging 10 points and 4 assists. I'm like, that's worth $50 million? Are you kidding me? So, living with that. And I think The one thing I missed the most, Crystal, and this is gonna sound very cheesy, but it was so. I still try to do it on TV now, but it still doesn't have the same impact as when you're on the basketball court. And I always got to the gym early, and I'm shooting around, and it's right before the game. There was a level of, I was so elated, excited, happiness that it brought to me when I would see a random kid, right, around the court, and somebody who wasn't even close to the court side. I'd be like, hey, you. I would point at him up in the rafters, and the kid would be like, what, me? I'd be like, yeah. And I would send security up to go get this kid or him and his friends. And I'll allow them to come down on the basketball court. You know, the same court where Jordan played, the same court where Pippen played. They won all these championships, and he would shoot around with me. We'd play one-on-one. This is before the game, right? And introducing the other players. Seeing that look in those kids' eyes, like that that validated all the work it took for me to get there at that given moment. And I miss that. I can still do that in certain ways as a broadcaster, being on the court, bringing kids, but it's still not the same because I'm not that player anymore. But I respect players that still do little things like that because they appreciate, just the magnitude of that moment for that kid.
So in your book, you have some amazing titles for your chapters, which I thought were quite interesting. You know, perfect, imperfect, freshman, going through the stages of your life, right? And then the one that really stood out, which is actually the last chapter, it says forgiven. Give me a little bit of insight into what that's about.
Well, first off, I had to learn how to forgive others before I was able to forgive myself. And it's amazing how many people I meet. I'm a talkative person just like you, talk to anybody, right? And as I was going through this process, I kept speaking to all these people, and I found out all these people were still holding animosity towards other people in their lives for things that they had done to them back in their earlier years. And I just started, I'm like, man, that's a lot of weight to carry around for a long time. And people still do it, right? It's funny, like, I watch my mom all the time with my dad, and she loves my dad, but my mom still carries around this weight from, this domestic violence thing that she went through with my father back in the day. And I can understand that. I've never been through that. And that's just a huge burden to carry. And I got to the point where it's like, I don't need to forget things that happened, and I have to learn from them. But also, I had to learn how to forgive people and understand that, look, I made bad decisions when I was 21 years old. I cheated on my girlfriend. I was a bad person. I started to lie to people. That's not who I am now at 34. That's not who my dad is now at 60 plus. And people grow and they learn. Not saying you need to keep them in your life in the same capacity, but I refuse to let that weigh me down from my past. And I was doing that. And I think throughout that process of learning how to forgive others, I found out how to forgive myself and actually embrace it and say, you know what? Yeah, we threw away a pretty big opportunity. But you know what? I've learned so much from that. And I'm going to take all those things I've learned from all that pain, and I'm going to embrace it, and I'm going to funnel it into what I'm doing now. And you know what? I purely believe this. I'm going to be way better as a broadcaster and as a TV personality than I ever would have been as a basketball player. And I have a chance to impact lives by doing this.
Definitely. I mean, and even with the title of the book, like, there are no accidents in life. I mean, essentially, like, the path that you were on, you were partying, you were getting high, you had lots of women. When we talk about from HIV/AIDS to drug addiction to ending up broke at the end of the day, if it wasn't for the accident, then your life could have been something totally different.
Crystal, the one thing, and it still occurs in all sports. It occurs in, in Fortune 500 companies as well. The one thing that broke me that I never wanted to be, and I pray to God and knock on wood that I'm not, and it's all about discipline, is I never wanted to be one of those guys that would, get driven up to the plane. I almost said droven. Jesus, that's not a word.
We can edit it out,
Duke education coming into full effect here. Driven up to the plane. It's been a long night. Driven up to the plane, and then, their wife and their kids, kissing them goodbye, saying, I love you. And I see this all the time. And then get on the plane and go to Toronto or Houston, one of these other towns, and party the night away with these, 2-3 other girls and have other relationships, and then come back home the next day like nothing ever happened. And their wives and their kids being ready for them to come home and embracing them, saying, I love you, and mwah, and everything's fine, and just living dual lives, having multiple personalities. That's not the life I wanted to live. And, things do happen for a reason. And a lot of people who shun that pain away, those are the people that refuse to embrace their past. And the more you shun it away, the more you don't learn from it because you try to act like it never happened. Instead of just being honest with yourself, I'm like, that did happen. That was crappy. And, I'm going to be better for it. And that's what I want.
So with everything that you've been through, Jay, I mean, it's so many people that go through these things, and I'm sure outside of the external, like drugs and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. I mean, there's something internally that's happening with you, depression, all those kind of things. When you're in that dark space, like where do you go? Because essentially, like you have to really have something great inside of you to come out of that.
Well, I didn't go anywhere for a long time. I stayed in that dark space, right? I was stagnant in the mud, and I kept rolling around in the mud for a long time. It wasn't until I really started to form a board. And what I mean by that is, look, Fox has a board. Rupert Murdoch sits up top, but he also needs to answer to this round table of people whose job is to brainstorm on what's the best interest for Fox, right? All these successful companies have boards. And I started thinking, okay, why am I different than a Fox, or why am I different than an ESPN? I'm not. I want to be successful, right? So how do I surround myself with a board that holds me to higher standards than I hold myself to? Almost in a way you're looking for a coach, right? And I always had great coaches. Coach K, obviously being involved, and he was, look, you need to get in the gym and get 500 made shots, and I would take 700 shots because he would give me something to go for, to strive for, and I always go way beyond that. That's always been my personality. So I had a guy like Charles Grantham who was on my board who, wrote one of the first drafts of the CBA and ran the Players Union for over, 15 years. I had a guy named Carl Liebert who was the CEO of 24 Hour Fitness at the time, now CEO of USAA Bank. A guy named Dan Levitin who, ran this company Madron. My mom, my dad, my girlfriend at the time. I started to solicit advice from all these people that the way they lived their lives was the way I wanted to live my life. Carl Lentz, the way he treated his wife, right? The way he treated his kids, how disciplined his life was. It's like, wow, okay, I need to start surrounding myself with those kind of positive influences, not like my drug dealer who was a 17-year-old kid who carried around Ninja Turtle backpacks. You know what I mean? Like, and I truly believe that's how life should be. You should be inspired each and every day to be better.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Coach K, he said he gave you some great advice. He says, always think about the next play.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the next play?
The next play is TV. The next play is watching athletes trying to find their way in broadcasting. And look, being a broadcaster, I promise I'll never say droven again. I'll say driven. But being a broadcaster, I see these athletes try to come in and be analysts, and being an analyst is great. But being an analyst is just a start for me. I watch a guy like Michael Strahan and how he could penetrate morning news, and to do that would be great. But I actually want to do real news. Like I would love to be on GMA. I would love to be on the Today Show. I would love to talk about, Donald Trump skipping the debate the other night, and what's that doing for his poll numbers with the Iowa caucus coming up, and Ben Carson actually say something when you're on the podium. I love talking about politics. I love talking about human interest stories. I am so much bigger than just the sport of basketball, and that's the next step for me.
Okay. And so I guess the last thing I would say, or I would ask you, I mean, of course we got to plug the book too, so we'll do that. But I'm like all wrapped up in this conversation.
It's all good.
When you look back over everything and forget the 21-year-old, because we've all been 21 and,
Mm-hmm.
we're babies at 21. I don't care what anybody says we're 21 and we're a baby. So when you look at where you are now, where you've come from, growing up in Jersey, what's the advice that you would give to the little boy that's on the basketball court that has the same dream that you had?
Well, I wouldn't just talk to the little boy in a basketball court. I would talk to any little boy or any little girl who's dealing with the complexity of identity. And I think for me, I was raised in a predominantly Black and Latino town, and I went to school. My mom worked at the local high school, and she didn't want me to go to the local public school system at that given time. And so she sent me to another school called Sacred Heart and another high school called St. Joe's, which is on the outskirts of Plainfield, which is predominantly white. So I think I grew up with this thing where it's like, okay, when I would go to the all-white school as an African-American male, and I would hang out a certain way or be athletic, they're like, oh, you're so hood, you're so Black. And then when I would go back to my hometown, I'd be hanging out with some of my guys on the corner at the time trying to fit in.
You're not Black enough.
Oh, yeah, well, you talk like a white boy. You're so nerdy, right? And I'm like, well, wait a second. Am I Black or am I white? Now I'm confused. And, I think a lot of kids go through that where they're trying to find out, okay, how can I fit in? I want people to like me, and I want to have friends. And now as a young man, look, I used to even joke around with my friends back in the day when they would say this, and they wouldn't say it with malicious intent. So my white friends, we'd be hanging out. They'd be like, oh, well, Jay, you're not really Black. And I would say, oh, no. Oh, I'm really Black. I'm really Black, and I am articulate, and I have a good vocabulary, and I like politics, and I like human interest stories, and I can be all this. Whereas I think when I was younger, I'm like, well, I would try to find a way to justify it, right? And I think all these kids are dealing with that. So it's okay to be different, and you don't feel the need that you have to fit into the social norm of being cool. And like I said earlier, when we first started this whole thing, look, I was a little bit of a nerd, and I laugh with some of my friends now because all the people who were nerds are now all the cool people, right? Like Jack Dorsey of Twitter. He was like the nerd back when he was younger. Now he's a cool guy. Everybody wants to work for Jack Dorsey at Twitter. Well, maybe not so much because their stock is struggling, but you know what I mean, right? So the complexity of identity is something that I want to speak to all kids about. Like, just embrace who you are, and it's okay to be different.
Excellent. Okay, so Life is Not an Accent, a memoir of reinvention. Like I need to reinvent my voice today.
I think your voice sounds great. It's held me captive this whole interview.
So, Jay, what else can we look for in the book?
I think it just talks about life. It talks about the ups and the downs. I'm very open. I read a book a couple of years ago by Andre Agassi, which was open, and I was very appreciative of how candid he was in those words on that paper. And, it made me relate to him, and it made me recognize that, okay, just because you've achieved a certain level of fame or that, you've made a certain amount of money, making money doesn't make you mature. It doesn't make you a better person, right? And how people are infatuated with it. And I think our society is moving more in that direction, right? Like Donald Trump, one of the things I think people find fascinating about him is that he's so open, he's so candid. I'm not saying I agree with everything he says, but you don't find that as far as a politician. And there's certain things I still keep secret in my life. My life is completely not an open book, but I think there were certain things for me just to be honest about through, the NCAA making so much money and these kids, how we demonize these kids. If they want to take money from somebody in the street, oh, you're a cheater. Like, well, wait a second. Coach K makes $7 million a year. I can't sell my shoes for $1,000 to go take my girlfriend, shopping, or, how my addiction issues, right? With how, look, when the government's able to capitalize on something and make money on something, they're quick to say, here, take more of it. Here, take more of this ibuprofen or this Ambien or this Percocet or this Oxycontin. And how it's easy for them to do that. But, I can't rub cannabis oil on my knee because I get demonized as somebody is, oh, you're a stoner. Well, wait a second. I'm just rubbing cannabis oil on my knee. It seeps into my skin. So I think there's certain issues that I try to expound upon that just, it articulates what life is. Life is complex, and we all are.
So where can we find the book, and where can we follow Jay Williams?
Well, I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram at RealJWilliams because I always try to keep it real. And then the book is on Amazon. You can get it online. I'm actually thinking about trying to do a couple of voiceovers with it and talk the book through, which should be interesting for me because I probably will cry as I talk about my own pain. Easier to write it, more difficult to preach it and talk about it. iTunes, you can download it, and Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
The only other thing I'm going to add into your interview is just about I want to talk about the identity piece. It's funny. My godson had a school project where he had to interview somebody. So I made him produce a whole piece, right?
I love that. That's good.
So he's 10, but he kept saying, God, mommy, I think I did this wrong. I think I did that wrong. And he struggles with that because he's in an all-black neighborhood and he totally goes to an all-white boys' school. And, he has to readjust. Like I see him going through that readjustment.
Yep.
So with those who struggle with the identity issues, like what do you think is the greatest lesson that you could tell them, or what do you think somebody did in your life to help you get through those identity issues?
My dad would talk to me all about it when I was younger, and it was funny. He always kind of is able to articulate himself about a game, right? So he's like, Jay, it's a game. You got to play the game, right? And I learned how to play the game. Because look, I used to rock a sag back in the day, okay? Like I live in New York City. I still wear my jeans are a little bit tighter than the normal person's jeans. I don't care. That's who I am, right? But I understand that when I am in New York, I can be this way. Or when I go back home to Plainfield, New Jersey, and I still hang out with some of the friends who are still in the same corner and I see them, I can be a certain way with them. And, look, when I go into a boardroom, I can put on a suit, I can put on a tie, and I can talk the way I'm talking now. You have to learn how to play the game. And it's okay, once again, to be different. You don't always have to fit in. So, my thing is for all these kids that are trying to find themselves, especially within the broadcasting industry, because I will say this, like my margin for error as an African-American male is slimmer than others. And I have to recognize that, okay? I have to understand that I'm not going to get the same privileges or advantages that other people will get. That's reality, right? I know we want to live in this dream world. It's all fair and equal, but it is not. And that is fine. So I have to be better than the person behind me because the person behind me is working just as hard as I am. I have to work harder, and I embrace that. So I have to watch what I do. Before I send out a tweet, I actually think about it. I'm like, do I want to say this? Am I ready to incur the cost of what's going to happen and the repercussions after I say this? When I drop cannabis oil, I have to actually have scientific facts behind me because I know the stereotype that comes along with the African-American male talking about marijuana, right? Even though Bill Clinton and all these other politicians and people have smoked marijuana in the day, I have to be ready to confront that. So look, you have to be sharp. You have to be on point. That comes along with the responsibility. We just have to embrace it.